Hello everyone. Here we're going to be looking at Python, PostgresQL, and Docker. Did I say Postgres? Yeah, Postgres. Right, so what we're going to be doing is we are going to look at how you can write some Python code to add and delete records from a database, and how you can use a Docker container to contain the database. This means that you can add a repo, add your database as a repo to GitHub, someone else can clone it and they're up and running. They don't need to set up their own database locally on their computer, which is quite good. It's good for development, and also obviously these days you can put your container onto cloud hosting, so you could put this to Google Cloud, AWS, and so on, so on. So let's just, I'll just kind of give an overview of what I've been doing, and this is going to be quite unstructured, but I'm just going to kind of talk about a few things that I've remembered or learned doing this, and things which might potentially be helpful to you in the future. And I'm just going to move my head out of the way if I can work out how to do that. Yeah, hopefully that's better. So yeah, let's begin. First off, I've got some Python code. I actually found it on GitHub and I've reused much of it. Unfortunately, I don't know the person's. I didn't fork it, I just copied and pasted it. So anyway, what this code does is, let's close all of this actually. Let's just close everything and I'll start from scratch. So I created a new project using Poetry, which you don't have to do. So as long as you've got an SQL folder, you don't have to run tests, but obviously it's good practice. I've got a file here called db_con. This is the file which establishes the connection. It creates a class called db_connection, and this then manages the connection to the database. You can see I've been testing it there with some test execute inserts and fetch all. But yeah, what you really want to be doing is testing it with your tests, your unit tests or your pytests, and get a connection to the database. So how can we connect to a database? It needs to already have been created. So that's when you want to be using a Docker compose file with docker-compose space up. I'll show you that in a minute. But essentially the Docker compose file, if you've not seen one before, it's a YAML file. And let me just make that out of the way as well and just make everything a bit better to see. There we go. So version 3.7, that's the version of, that's the Docker version that it's going to pull down. And is it a Docker version? I don't know. Anyway, services, Postgres, that's what we're interested in. Image, Postgres 10.5, quite an old image, but it's stable, and there's lots of help for it on Stack Overflow and various forums. So if you wanted to go for, I'm getting confused here. If you wanted to go for an older version, I last used, on another project, I used 3.3. But 3.7 seems to work. So if you want to copy this, as of June 2022, this works. You'll commonly see 3.7 or similar. So you build up services and volumes. So within services, you've got Postgres and then image, and each one of those is two spaces indentation, unlike Python, which by default is usually 4. Restart always, I don't know what that does. Don't quote me on that. It's been in most of the examples I've seen. Anyway, environment. So Postgres is the user. Password, also Postgres. And then if you put this line here on line 9, what is it not? Oh, it's probably because I got full screen. Oh, it's because I was going to put a little red dot there to debug it, but it's not. It's only an INI file, isn't it, or a YAML file. Postgres_DB YT video. That is the name of your database. If it's not already created, this gets created. I didn't want to just. I don't think it's good practice just to use the Postgres database for everything. Logging options, max size 10 million, max file 3. I don't know what they are, but it works. So ports 5438 is getting converted to 5432, which is the port which the database is actually listening on. And these are the bits which will probably cause you most problem. So from line 16 downwards, these are the fiddly bits. So what I've done here is set up a variable. Effectively, it's variable db var lib postgresql data, postgresql/data. And if you look up here, that's what this folder is. So if you open it, there's nothing inside it. It'll be hidden. It contains hidden folders and files. So when Docker Compose starts up, it creates a variable called db, which represents this mount point. Then you have these files, which this .sql file here creates some tables, and this one fills in the tables. That's totally optional, but obviously you need a SQL file to create the table. That lives in here. You see the yellow cylinders there. So you've got one for fill tables, one for create tables. So fill is optional, create you do need. And create table if not exists, create table if not exists. That's creating 8 different tables. Standard SQL stuff there really. And then down at the end, you've got volumes and then DB and then driver :local. Again, I don't know what those are. Don't quote me on that, but for purposes of this video and for my project, I know they work, so it's all good. Right, that's the Docker Compose YAML file, and basically this pulls down Postgres image, and then it goes off and runs these 2.sql scripts. So effectively what you'll end up with is a running database inside a Docker container. Now, if you're on Visual Studio, what you probably want to be doing is running it via a Docker extension, or the it's the extension, and then up here you can manage it here much more easily than if you were doing it. You could do it command line, and but it's up to you really. I mean, this is good because you can see very quickly what containers you got running and what volumes, rather than doing lots of Docker ls commands and so on. Obviously, if you're working remotely, then it's good to know the commands. So there we go. We've got a volume, and the volume's important because the volume is what makes this data persistent. So if you close or stop the container, shut everything down, and then you reopen again, you still want your data there. So that's why you need a volume. And that appears just here. Close that. So all this is specific to Docker. And the other interesting part for this video is testing. And all the tests have passed, I'm pleased to say, which is only one file, which is called test_app.py. And just one other thing I wanted to show here. I'm using a fixture. So in conf test, if you know anything about pytest, you'll know that there's a thing called conftest.py, which can contain your fixtures. Fixtures are things which, like here for instance, it sets up the database connection, and you can then put that database connection to a variable. You can return the variable, and then that variable is then available to all of your other test files. I've only got test_app.py here, but if you had 10, you could refer to or actually conf test gets read by default by pytest. So any variables which are created in here will be available to all of your other files, provided you reference it inside the brackets. So def test version and then setup database, which that is what you've just seen in conf test. Setup database. So that in conf test needs to match what you've got, what you're passing into your test functions. So anyway, enough about testing, because a lot of people find testing boring and I don't want to bore you. So I'm trying to talk quickly and drink lots of coffee as well, because a lot of people these days all talk at about 1.5 speed. So I thought I'd save you having to change the speed setting. Right, let's run this now. So the first thing I want to do is, in fact, I'll show you it running and then we'll come back and we'll stop it and then we'll start it again. So so what you can see here, my terminal here, is I'm actually within the PSQL admin, command line admin prompt. So /c connects to your database. Now, how has it created it? Because I specified it here. Now, what I've also got is a database.ini file, and within the database.ini file, I've also specified that you have to specify the correct database name here, because Python will read the database.ini file using config parser, and it'll pull out the database name. So Python needs database.ini, and then obviously Docker uses the YAML file. So yeah, user, password, Postgresql, database, YT video. So here, connected to database, and if I do select star from users, you'll see I should have 100 odd users that were created by the field tables SQL script, but when Docker read the YAML file, and then I've got 2 more entries, which is 103 as John, 104 as Bob. Now, if I go to this file, which is my Python code, and you see here it's got test on line 14, insert into users, name and ID. So if I change that from Bob to ABC, if I change that to 105, and then just switch back to my Python shell and run it, and you see it's inserted 105 ABC, which wasn't there just now, because just now we only had 104. So this is not refreshed. So if I do refresh it, or effectively I'll refresh it by doing select star from users, and then we go down again, we should now see we've got ABC on line 105. So it's inserting the data into the PostgreSQL Docker container, which is good. So now if we do /quit, exit, and right, so get rid of that. And now if we go to Docker, and if we stop the image, stop, and then go to volumes, once the image is stopped, I'm actually going to delete the volume, and we will then, no, I won't. What I'll do is first I'll show you how it's persistent. So if we start up Docker again, I'll prove that it's stopped by, if I run my Python code, we should see we get an error, no cursor, and that's because the database isn't running. So if we start the database again, wait until the arrow goes green, run the code. Yeah, key already exists, that's fine. Let's put ABC in at 106 then, just to prove that the code's working. There we go, 106, we've also put in ABC. And what we're going to do next, so we've proved that it's persistent because we stopped the container and then brought it back up again. So now if we stop it, and then we will remove the container and remove the volume. Yeah. So obviously now if we run the code, we'll get the same old error. Yeah, no cursor. Good. And what we want to do now is we want to run docker compose up, docker dash compose, and all this is doing is looking for the YAML file, and it's doing all the things which we've told it to do in the YAML file. So it's creating a volume, it's doing lots of clever stuff, it's doing all the inserts, creating a database, and we've now got the green arrow there, and we've got a new volume again, created a few seconds ago. So now if we go in attach shell in VS Code, and then we'll do PSQL dash capital U and then the username, and then if we do connect to YT video, and then if we do select star from, not ampersand, star from users, there we see we've got 100 records, which is correct because we deleted the volume. Because we deleted the volume, we deleted all the data that was previously in our database. Now, if we go back to our Python app, and now I need to start a new instance of the shell. And I've got a spam call from another country, so let's just get rid of them. You don't get that on yeah, on all the top YouTube channels, do you? They edit it out because they've got expensive editing software and computers and teams, whereas I haven't, so sorry about that. Right, let's cd app, and if we run Python 3 and then we run app2.py, there we see it's put back in ABC on line 106. So if we switch back to here and we run select star from users, instead of user 100 being the bottom one, we should now find we've got 106. Yeah, there we go. So we've shut down the container, we've deleted the volume, we've brought the container back up, it's created a new volume with 100 records in it. Because why did it have 100 records? It had 100 records because field tables, number of users, set session. So this is one of the two files that get mentioned in the YAML file, docker compose YAML file. So the docker-compose.yml has to be called that, and that's the path. And then you just say after that, you say docker-entry point-initdb.d field tables. So I'll put this on GitHub because until you've done this a few times and changed a few settings and broken it and then fixed it again, you really you probably won't learn it. And until you've got a 100% working version, you're sometimes chasing your tail because you end up thinking that you've got wrong usernames, wrong permissions, and so on. So that's one of the reasons why here I wanted to actually change the default database away from nearly every example says Postgres, and also the default port. So you may need to just go in, you might get permission denied with your ports, and you have to go in and edit a file which I've forgotten the name of, but there's a file deep within, I think it's var lib postgresql. There's a file in there, I think it's a conf file, pgah.conf, something like that. And you need to just go in and edit that. I'll go see if I can find it for you. Postgres pgah, no, pg. Yeah, that one. client authentication is controlled by a configuration file, which is traditionally pg_hba.conf and is stored in the database cluster's data directory. Yeah, if you have any issues with permissions, check that file, pg_hba.conf. If you get stuck, there's the official. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so what you might need to do is, this is the official default file on Postgres GitHub page. Yeah, it tells you all about permissions, and obviously all these are just comments at the moment, so you can uncomment some of these. Depends whether you're on Windows, Linux, whatever, and also whether you're accessing this remotely or from the host machine itself. Okay, so there you go. Right. One other thing I was going to cover: SQL, Python. So not really looked at Python in huge detail. So let's just give that just a little once over. So that's using the connection class, which is created in db_con. And db_con that we saw earlier uses psychopg2. Yeah, psychopg2. If you install it on Linux, you need to install psychopg2-binary. You'd need to do pip install psychopg2-binary. Obviously, because I've already got it installed, it'll say it's already satisfied, but there you go. That command there is what you would need to do. I had an error earlier also where it wasn't picking up my ini file, and I think I had some path issue with the path. So when we go up to dbcom, it wasn't picking up the path to the ini file, so I actually ended up putting the absolute path in. I'm going to try taking that out again, or just putting it back to relative and seeing if that works. Maybe not. I'll come back to that another day. That's but yeah, absolute or relative paths, depending on how you. It may even just be worth putting in the same putting your Python file and your data. Yeah, they're in the same file actually, aren't they? They're in the same directory. That actually should work. Let's go back here. Python app dbcon. Well, that ran okay. So if we do, let's try. Yeah, that ran okay. So don't worry about the extended path there, because I've actually, and you probably would anyway as well, put the database ini file in the same directory as your main Python code. If I collapse all this, you'll see the overall structure. So I've got a folder called app, folder called tests. So I've got a readme, a PyProject, that's created by Poetry, that's created by Poetry. That's a readme file, so we all know what a readme file is, hopefully. Come on. That was me earlier finding the command line way to delete the volume. You can do docker volume ls. If you don't delete your volumes, and you could end up with quite a few. So yeah, always good to do a bit of housekeeping on that side of things, really. So let's just get that out of the way. Just to wrap up, reading connection parameters. So it's reading all the parameters from the ini file, connecting to the database, connect. So it's doing a try, except there's no need for finally, because I'm actually doing the close right at the end anyway, because I don't want to do the close after each one, because that's means more open than closes. No, actually, I'll tell a lie. That should be. Oh, of course, if it's not making a connection, I don't need to close it. Sorry. So this one, if it does make a connection, then you need to close it. Close. So if the connection is not closed, then close it. Commit. Do the connection commit. Roll back on a query. I spelled that wrong. Executing queries, drop create. So you can pass whether you want to insert or drop, etc. with this query. So execute allows you to do insert, update, delete, and so on. Fetch one, fetch all. So don't just fetch one record, fetch all of your query. And this down here, I say I borrowed this code. So this actually has got some code which allows you to export your table to a with open path file. So whatever you pass in here will be the file name that you export to, and then you end up with a CSV or a JSON file. You can export your database to JSON, which is nice. And then this does the reverse. It copies from a file, it copies it into your database. So I'll put this code on GitHub, and if anybody wants to copy it, in theory, you will just need to clone it and then do docker-compose up, like I did on, I don't know, is it still in the history? Maybe not, but that's still connected to the database. Yeah, so with, once you're in the right directory, you need to be in the same directory as your docker compose YML file. So you can see at the moment I am in that directory, which is good. So you would just do docker-compose space and then up. The first time you run it, it will pull down the image from Docker, the image that you've specified in the YAML file, the YML file. So yeah, let's just check I've covered everything. I think so. What I'm going to do is just put this on GitHub, and it will be it's MVP, minimum viable product. So it's got some dummy data, some 8 dummy tables filled with dummy data. The start of a unit or pytest, which tests a connection using a fixture, pytest.fixture, scope equals module. Play around with module and session and so on, because that makes a difference whether you did setup and tear down in between each test, which you don't really want to be doing if you're doing lots of tests. Yeah, install the Docker extension, install the pytest, the testing extension, if indeed you need to. I can't remember, but anyway, when you install pytest, you just then need to go up to Python. So I did there Control-Shift-P, Python configure tests, and then you've got a choice of using pytest or unit test. If you're doing another language, I'm sure there would be other options available there in the drop down. So yeah, hopefully this has been informative. Probably it's not something you want to type off the screen that you've watched on a tutorial. So yeah, I'll put the code on GitHub. You can copy it, clone the code, run, then open it in a virtual environment, then navigate to the directory where you've got Docker Compose, and then run, as I just showed you, Docker-compose up, and then you can run the database connection file, which is dbcon, and then you can start running app1, app2, and so on, which actually do the inserts of the data. And yeah, so with those files, what you actually need to do is import the connection. So every file that you create which uses the database connection that wants to talk to Postgres, you will need this line here. Hopefully that has given you some ideas. Probably the biggest challenge is getting the volumes to work correctly, and copy this and then start changing things, because if you get it working, then you can change something, break it, and then put it back how it was, and just start seeing which bits you can change and get away with until it breaks. There is lots of documentation, but everything's going to be pretty specific to your setup. So depending on what your database name is, and again what your ini file contains, if you keep it fairly generic to start with, so localhost, you'll still be localhost, databases, and then port 5438, I changed that, and 5432 is the default port number. There we go. Thank you for watching, and I will be back soon, and I will put the link for this in the description of the video, and thank you for watching. Questions, comments, subscribe, all that stuff. Thank you.